Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the stats. You guys ready for stats?
Just the stats?
Just the stats, Jack? Okay, so we're going to talk about what we're doing. So in January, we were able to help 28 people, 28 families, be able to help sell their home and help buy a home. So congratulations, everybody, for 28 people. We had a great January last year, and we doubled the amount of people that we were able to help from January last year to this year. So great job. So clients need in February, we're wanting to be able to have 30 in, our goal is we want to have 33 for February. So we're a little bit behind on that, so we can, but there's still time to see what we can do. And also there's always March, right? So goal for 2020, how many do we want to help in 2020?
750.
Making it easy for everybody. Okay, so let's talk about January. So basically in January, the overall market, there were 102 homes sold in January of 2019. And in 2020, we basically were able to move it up a little bit for 109. So we're actually seeing home sales increase year over year per January. So a 6% increase, okay? So that's awesome. And then this number is unbelievable to me, that not only did we have it for 1 month, but we've seen this for a few months now. Average sales price last year in January was a little over $218,000. And right now in 2020, average is $248,000. Do you know how many years we sat around $120,000 or lower for so many years? And to go up 14% in 1 year, that doesn't necessarily mean that every home in the market is appreciating 14%, but we are seeing of the average. I mean, some are lower, some are higher, but man, that is an incredible number. And honestly, we hope that that number doesn't always continue that high, because it's not a sustainable number over time, but it's an incredible number for our market.
So these average price, this is for January. So these are the average solds for January last year, average sold for this. And that's about what the average of the market is. If you go in a 12-month rolling.
Yeah. And if it is sustainable, what it means is we've always been behind in Idaho Falls as opposed to some of the larger markets. Maybe it means that, and we're still behind if you go to other markets, but if we continue with this type of increase, it might mean that Idaho Falls maybe ends up being one of the higher priced markets in the area. And right now, with all the numbers of everybody coming to Idaho Falls, it might be that that's what's happening. But we don't know until we look back, right? All we can do is speculate.
So I have a quick question on that average price. Are you guys, as agents, are you guys seeing that people are shopping in that 250?
If they can get pre-approved
if that's what they are, is that generally what the house that they're, unless they're looking at like a first time, is that generally what you're feeling like they're looking at?
Like the average?
Mm-hmm.
I'd say closer to 2.
Oh, you got a lot more people looking in the 200,000. Mm-hmm. Got it.
In January, the homes that sold in January of 2019 had an average days on market of 57. And in January of 2020, it went down 11% to 51. So why do you think January tends to have a higher days on market than other months of the year? Because the other months of the year, they aren't that high, but in January they are.
Probably just the holidays, really.
Coma,
yeah. Nobody wants to move in the winter, really, either.
Yeah, it might have something to do with that. I really don't know what the answer is to that, but it's interesting and something to think about. But the last 2 years, we see days on market a little bit higher than the average for the month of January.
So I have a theory.
Yeah.
I have a theory that the houses that sell in January, there's less inventory. It's a little bit tighter in January. And so maybe some of the houses that wouldn't necessarily move in January.
Oh, I believe that. Because
they've been sitting for a while.
I totally.
Right? And so that's why the average days on market, you pick up some of the ones that have been on the market a longer time. They actually get sold. And since this is sold, it shakes a little bit of the cobwebs.
That's probably it. And when is inventory the lowest?
January.
Yeah, in these times of the year. So that probably is totally it. And when do homes sell for the highest price per sold price versus asking price? What 2 months see the highest months.
I think it's January to February, right?
It's exactly right. Yeah. It's January and February. In January and February, because inventory is low, people get the most amount of money. So I think we just broke that. That's what it is. Okay, absorption rate. Who wants to say what absorption rate is? It's something that we're going to talk about all the time. We talk about it all the time. The market doesn't hear it very often. Does anybody want to explain it?
Essentially, absorption rate is how quickly we can expect to sell your home. So if we stop taking new listings and there are no brand new listings on the market at all, and we just have to sell off the remaining inventory, what is the expectation? How long will it take to sell off all of that inventory? And that's how we quantify how quickly it takes to sell a home.
Okay, so it is our best measuring stick to determine if it's a buyer's market or a seller's market. So what Brian just said is in 2020, from January, if no other homes went on the market, based on the amount of homes that are selling, we would be completely out of homes in 1.1 months. There would not be a single home on the market. So how important is it right now that new homes continue to go on the market? Because, I mean, it's crazy tight, and it's an incredible seller's market. Joe?
So is this saying that it's becoming even more of a seller's market?
Yeah, by 1/10.
But it's happening.
It's happening, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we were just in Billings yesterday. We taught in Billings yesterday, and they were at, what did they say? They were at 90 days?
Yeah.
They had about 3 months of inventory,
Yeah.
3 or 4 months of inventory. So Billings even, they said they couldn't believe we were still this way. They're swinging the other way.
So a balanced market is considered 5 to 6 months. So if you're 5 to 6 months, then you're a balanced market. If you're above 6 months, then you are a buyer's market, because that means there's a lot of inventory. Back 10 years ago, there were times when we would have 10 to 12 months of inventory. And so that meant there were so many homes on the market that you had to be the best one or you're going to sit. And average days on market was, upwards of 100 days on the market.
Now, if we're in the price range of 700 and up, we're in a seller or buyer's market in that price
Correct.
range, right? So, I mean, overall, we're in a seller's market, but depending on your price point, it does change that from price point to price point.
Which is why it's so important. Stats are applicable to certain things. That's why we have to reach out to our buyers, we have to reach out to our sellers and make sure that they're able to understand if this is applicable to them or not, because we have the numbers for every single price range. But yeah, this doesn't mean that if you have $1 million house, you're going to be able to sell it quick, because it's different for every single price range. That's a really good point.
What's interesting also that I think that will affect the absorption rate is if rates are still super low. We'll talk about rates in a minute, but rates are still super low. So what happens if the rates tick up and buyers can't pay as much for a house? Right now, they're in a seller's market. They're kind of taking the hit on sellers wanting more money, but their money is cheap. So they don't really resist it as much because their money is cheap. What happens when their money isn't as cheap? And what will happen when the sellers want to demand more money? Will the buyers buy? Or will they now see the buyers kind of say, listen, we can't take it anymore. We're not going to be willing to pay those prices. And that will help swing that pendulum a little closer, probably back to the middle.
The 1.1 months of inventory takes into account those higher price homes.
Exactly.
So if we remove those upper end homes that we don't normally see sell around here, that's going to drop that inventory supply level to half a month.
Yeah.
That's a really good point.
I think you might be allowed to drop that mic right now.
Yeah.
Mic drop. That's a mic drop.
And see you next week.
Because isn't that what averages are?
Yeah.
I mean, averages, you have to realize an average is an average, and that means that there are extremes on both sides of the market. So that's a really good point.
Next month, I may
8%
do that. I may
decrease.
take out the top and the bottom and see what it looks like in the middle.
Yeah.
Below 100 and above 400 or 500. Yeah, interesting.
The market's not recovering from our low inventory. As much as we're putting homes up on the market, as much as the builders are trying to build as quickly as they can, and if you talk to builders, they wish they had double the amount of contractors so they could build double the amount of houses because they have double the demand. But the market's saying that in our market right now, inventory is still tight. It's not gaining, and eventually it will, right? Because what goes up must come down. Markets always have trends. And as the market continues to be strong, more people are going to get into construction, more people are going to get into real estate, and then supply will somehow level out eventually. Eventually, the market will meet the demands and that's when it can level out. And we're hoping that happens. But so far, our market has not been able to do that.
So, Chad, Gary Keller said from the stage even 2 years ago about general contractors and builders that when the market crashed in 2008, we lost so many builders. So many builders lost their shirts and got out of building. And we actually had 200,000. We are less 200,000 builders in the United States than we were in 2008. They've not entered back into the market. When it recovered, they didn't get back into construction. So we actually have less builders, not just less homes being built.
Yeah.
So that keeps inventory tight.
Totally. I mean, this all happened because of the extremity of the recession, because everybody left. And it's all just supply and demand, right? I remember when I saw the dirt moving. We didn't see dirt move for a long time. Nobody was building, no backhoes were moving dirt. And when I saw dirt move, I think it was on Sunnyside, I told my wife, I'm like, that is the most beautiful thing I've seen in a long time, is to see a hole being dug in Idaho Falls. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was a beautiful thing. And I meant that. It was beautiful because we had wanted to see that for so long. So this is an interesting stat here. Just to give you an idea of how tight the market is, we were looking at all the different price ranges, right? From 175,000 and under, there's only 22 homes on the market.
In Bonneville County.
In Bonneville County.
We know.
Yeah, you know.
Very aware.
You know.
You've showed them all, right?
Yeah, you've seen every
You've looked
one.
at every one of them.
I've seen everyone.
And some of them are overpriced and they've been on the market a long time and they're not going to move and they just sit there. So really, again, that's the number, but it's not even a true accurate number because some of them aren't going to move.
So let me ask this. Let me ask you guys as agents. When you know a house is sitting out there and overpriced, are you willing to make an offer at the price it should be? Are you guys offering and saying, listen, this is sitting at 175, but we darn well know, we've looked at everything. This is a 150 house. Do you go in and offer 150? Because a lot of sellers wonder why that doesn't happen. They want to start high, right? And they're sitting out there, and if an agent can't discuss the market with them, why don't you go in and say, I've done a CMA, this is worth 150, they like it, but they're willing to pay.
I mean,
What is it for you guys?
Well, we do because we're running CMAs and we know the inventory is low, and so we'll tell buyers like, this is, we'll send comps with our offer. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like we'll send them with the offer, and we'll see if we can get them on a more realistic line. But because a lot of the buyers, because they hear that it's a seller's market, and because as agents we talk about stats and saying everything's selling for 99.8% list price, whatever. When they look at a property and it's at 175 and really it should be 150, they're probably, they'll never take an offer at 150. They just think that because it's a seller's market that you can offer 20 grand less on a property, which generally you can't, right, in this market because most things are listed correctly. And so, but what they misunderstand is some of the ones that are high that you really should be offering loaded because that's really where their price is at because they are too high. But I think it's just because people think it's a seller's market, and it is a seller's market, and they think, oh, you can't get 20 grand less on a property. Well, if it's listed too high, then maybe you can.
Yeah.
Totally.
I mean, sellers get offended too.
Yeah.
When you're sending over an offer for 20 grand less, they're
Mm-hmm.
definitely getting offended.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. They say they won't, but then when they get it,
Yeah.
it's a different story.
exactly.
So what's the market saying, and is this seasonality? We don't have a lot of seasonality in Idaho Falls. Mm-hmm. January and February are our lowest months as far as home selling. And from March until December, it's within 3 percentage points of the same amount of homes selling year round. So people think there's seasonality. There really is not that much. We are a very steady market. And we're going back starting next month to be just our regular pace of lots more home selling. So
now if someone's going to list, now would be a super great because the market floods once the weather starts to, or sellers who are discretionary start. If you want to sell at the top dollar, call us today.
yeah, yep. So interest rates, we see those signs at furniture stores. Everything must go, sales. It's the same thing with interest rates. So 2019, rates were going up. We didn't think they'd ever come down. There was no reason for them to come down that we understood. Well, guess what? They're down 19%, back down to 3.6. That's crazy. I never thought we'd see that again. So what does this mean as far as buying power for the buyers? Austin, you want to walk us through that?
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're a buyer and you're approved at, let's just say 200,000, right? And you're looking for a home and your interest rate is 3%. Let's just say, for example, your interest rate jumps up 1%. You lose 10%, 10 to 11% of buying power. So if you're looking at a $200,000 house, your interest rate goes up from 3 to 4%. You lost, essentially you can buy a home now at like 178,000 and have that same payment. So I mean, it really changes, as a buyer, it really changes your ability to buy. I mean, you went from a 200 house to a 178 house, and buyer's agents that are showing homes, that can be a matter of a big difference in a home type and value and quality. It might be a difference of having 3 beds or having 4 beds. So that's a huge thing that we got to take into consideration when we're looking to make an offer with interest rates as low as they are.
Also, a really good time to sell because that does change buying power.
It does.
Which means sellers who want top dollar may not get the top dollar anymore.
Yep.
Because
Buyers
they can't
can't afford it.
Yeah.
Those buyers that could afford it now are priced out.
Got to go down to a lower price point. So
Yep.
yeah, again, it's a perfect time to sell if you want top dollar.
Right.
Okay, let's hear some success stories.
So last year, me and Ashley helped one of my friends buy a house. Brian sold it and we helped her buy. And her grandma is now looking to sell their house. And Brian's actually going to meet her today to give them a value, and she's going to sell and then buy again. So referrals and our clients are what we look forward to. Like, that's the best part of our job, definitely.
Biggest compliment that we
Yep.
can get, right?
Biggest
Absolutely.
compliment. Great job. Great job.
I can just think of one story, not necessarily with a seller, but just a co-op agent that I was working with.
When you were the seller.
Well, yeah, when I was a seller and then the buying agent came along, and it's Dan Thomas. It was actually one of the best deals I've ever had. And I mean, it was kind of an unconventional one too, because our seller was a little bit older and would never answer his phone, and we never knew where he was at, and I'd have to drive out there to find him, and he was forever away. And
Did he ever e-sign?
he'd never e-signed it. He always said he was going to, and then he would come in the office, and he would never tell me when he was coming in the office, and he always surprised us. But Dan and I would tag team trying to locate this guy, trying to like negotiate the offer, trying to even down to the final day of closing. Dan and I were sitting at the title company thinking, where the heck is our seller? And then we get a call from my office saying, he's at the office. So I drive over to the office to go grab him to take him to the title company. And well, then he made it to the title company, and I'm at the office by myself and just like, where is this guy? But no, Dan, seriously, I mean, if it wasn't for Dan on that, I don't know how on earth we would have got that one done.
Way understanding.
Nice.
So he went way above.
That's awesome. Cool. Any affiliates we want to recognize? Anybody that went above and beyond?
I have one.
Okay.
So Landon Kessler and Amber Oberhansley
Yep.
with Idaho First Mortgage.
Oh, yeah.
So we have a client who's in a pretty tough price range. Remember the 22 homes under 175?
Yes.
Yeah, so they're under like 150. So it's a tough market, and everything that they wanted to look at happened to be listed very aggressively and listed well. And they'd pop up on Fridays. By the time it would get to Saturdays, it would, be multiple offer situations. And Landon, we had to be very careful with the numbers on the offer for closing costs and things like that. I always like to make sure those numbers are correct so that there's no surprises. And we're talking like 8, 9 o'clock at night on Saturday, like 3 times in a row. They were in contact with us and helped us get offers into these multiple offer situations where offers were due, ASAP. And so don't call them every Saturday night, but it's awesome when, if you reach out to them and they say, no, we really need this now, this can't wait till Monday, they are willing to help. And it really helps in an aggressive buyer's market, and we got those offers in. So it was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Good deal. Nosy neighbors, who'd we visit in January? We visited Oxford Dental, Southeast Idaho Bridal Fair. Do you want to go over this, Jess?
Yeah, perfect. So this is who we went through in January, and we had some really fun meetings and to talk to these vendors. And if you haven't had a chance, if you're looking to refer, if you guys are watching, those nosy neighbors, especially like Oxford Dental, he is opened up took over a practice, and he's got some great deals going on for families who might want to look for affordable dental care. I think he was doing cleanings and x-rays for like $100. And we just found some really things. I learned a lot at Rip Nutrition. The cookie place is an awesome local place. Manwaring cheese. Okay, so if you guys don't know about Manwaring cheese, you should watch the Nosy Neighbors video. Because what's interesting is, if you didn't know, they use a special kind of milk that has a different kind of protein, that if you're lactose intolerant, you can eat their milk and cheese. I didn't know that. I had no idea. So anyway, really interesting things and some really great stuff out there. And we have some really fun stuff coming up this month as well. So we have coming up, we're going to visit Lynn's Shaky Razor, who our beard aficionado here goes to. Also, we're going to do an update from the boys basketball state tournament, talk about what local teams are there. We have Tile Trends coming in, Senior Solutions, which is going to be a super great, interesting to talk about what we have for seniors support, some inspections, the Healing Sanctuary, and a really cool thing called RV There Yet, which is where you can rent an RV instead of having to buy. So we've got some great stuff, and we're really excited to highlight these amazing local partners.
And one that you went through was Johnny's moving trailer.
I do love.
We got to make sure we mention Johnny.
I love Johnny's moving trailers. Juan is a fantastic.
They are awesome.
They are awesome.
They're so awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, everybody. Well, that's our stats for today, and we'll move on to the next thing. Thanks.
And if you're enjoying these smart messages and you have friends or family that you could introduce us to that would enjoy these, that we could help, we would appreciate that. Instead of trying to rely on contacting a human, you can know about the entire transaction from start to finish on day one.
It's 24/7 information.
Everyone's unique, but they have the same concerns because this is the process. So these smart messages, I think, are going to answer people's questions.
So these smart messages are going to be amazing.